Welcome to this month's compilation of 3 tricks from the original Tarbell course. In this video, you're going to learn an interesting way to read the spectators' minds, how to tear and restore a piece of paper, and how to make a gimmick deck that allows you to look into the deck and see the spectator's chosen card. If you like magic content like this, be sure to like and subscribe, but for now, let's get into the magic. So I want you to imagine for this trick that you split the deck into 2 halves and your participant is going to mix up their half, take out a card, memorize it, and they're going to put it into your half. Now, you don't even get a chance to see the back of this card, but these cards are not marked, okay? But by simply taking your packet in your hand and just by kind of holding it up to your forehead like this, you're going to be able to get the sense that I feel like the 9 of diamonds was chosen, wasn't it? Yeah. We can do this again. Just so you can see, they take out any card. You don't look at the back. It goes into your packet. And again, just by taking the cards, holding them up to your forehead, you're gonna get that sense that it's the 4 of clubs. You can do this over and over again. It's a really cool trick. And the secret's actually staring right at you in this deck of cards. Welcome to the explanation for what is known in the original Tarbell course as X-ray cards. So it's a really cool deck peek device, and if you've been around Magic for some time, you might have recognized this principle permeated and perpetuated in other effects, but this classic one is a really cool one. And me personally, growing up, learning from the likes of, folks like Daniel Madison, other gimmick makers, this is right up my alley in terms of just a really cool experiment. It may or may not be something you carry around. I think that's totally okay. Some tricks I think are valuable to learn just for the creativity on display and kind of how that teaches you principles of illusion to learn and remix. So don't count this out. I would encourage you making this, trying it out at home. And it's a cool gimmicked deck that you get to make at home. That's another really cool thing, is if you just have a deck of cards, you can turn it into a cool gimmicked deck just by learning this trick. So I hope you enjoy this. If you like magic content like this, like and subscribe, do all the YouTube things, but for now, let's learn this trick. So to make this, I do recommend you have a craft board and a craft knife of some sort. So of course, if a kid is involved in this, they need to do it with adults' permission and possibly help, but these will make this process a lot easier. The deck is comprised of 2 things. One half of the deck is completely normal, so you can just set aside about 26 cards for me, I just used an old deck of cards, one that I had already used a lot. That's easy when it comes to making gimmick decks. You won't have to worry about anything. And then here is the secret part of the cards. I'm going to reveal it now as I remove some cover cards here. And hopefully you can see that we actually have a hole right over the index of the cards. A quick run through on how it looks to make this. I am left-handed just for context, but you're actually going to take your craft knife. Of course, be careful when you're doing this. And I'm just making lines right around the index of the card. And I don't want to go too skinny so that I don't accidentally cut into the index itself. So by avoiding the index in the cut, see, I almost made a mistake there. Go a little bit larger. By avoiding the index with your cut, you're going to be able to know that the index will show through the hole. And this is what this portion is called. This is called the index of the card. You're going to run over those lines a few times, just being careful, of course, and then you'll be able to cut that portion of the card completely out, and that'll leave you with something that looks like this. I'm excited to announce that I'm introducing bonus tricks to the insider tier of the membership. What I get to do on this channel is I go through the classics, I go through public domain magic books that anyone can access. I look through, I find cool tricks, I get to learn them for myself, and then I share with you what I've learned. So you're getting it on video, which is helpful if you're a visual learner, but you also get my tips and advice as someone who has over 18 years of studying and learning and enjoying magic. And so that won't change. I'm still teaching tricks on this channel in the exact same way. I'm just adding an extra trick as a bonus trick to the membership as a thank you to my financial supporters. So if you want a little extra magic this month, be sure to check out the Insider tier. This month's bonus trick I'll be teaching is a thought of card to pocket with a twist from the original Tarbell course called a psychological impossibility. It looks like a prediction effect at first, but then the thought of card vanishes from the packet and ends up in your pocket. Super cool, super fun, and once again, it's just a little bit of extra magic for you should you like to check it out. So throw on a podcast, listen to music, but do be careful and do focus well so that you can do this. Now, when it comes to this part, you might run into a few cards where you accidentally cut through or this bends too much. That's okay, you can just throw them away, don't worry about it too much, but if you're careful enough to not be too forceful but just be deliberate, this will stay intact enough for it to be fine. So now that you know the secret tool being on display, here's how to perform. I would encourage leaving maybe 1 to 2 cards on top of the gimmicked portion, doesn't matter how many really, and then maybe, optionally, you can have a kind of hiding card on the bottom as well. So that way on both sides, things are completely covered. Just hold the deck in a pinky break. This is where you kind of have your pinky inserted here so that you can kind of fan off the normal cards and hand those to your audience member. And then you have yours here and you can kind of show it on all sides and hold it in your hand, doesn't really matter. Now for me, I'm left-handed, so the index is right here on the inner portion. If you're a righty, it's gonna be in your left hand and it'll be toward the base of your hand. But in either case, I think holding it toward yourself is gonna be helpful. So they're gonna be instructed to mix these cards together, and they can do so. And then what's great is it's a free selection, so they don't need to pick it face down. It's a free selection, and they're gonna take these out. And maybe they select this card, the King of Diamonds. Now here's what you're gonna instruct them to do. You're gonna have them place it anywhere they want inside this packet of cards, and you can fan it out so long as you understand to keep the indexes hidden, right? So on either side, you need to be very careful about that. Depending on how you spread it, you could have it revealed or you could have it perfectly fine. So you want to make sure you're understanding where the index is and how when you spread it, that's going to create a good moment or a bad one. So understand how you're spreading them, and then they can place it all the way in, and you can genuinely square it up, put it down on the table. That makes it really nice and fair. Now to get the peek, you're going to explain how you're going to read their mind. So what you can do is you can show these cards both sides, and then to get rid of this cover card, you can say that you're going to hold the deck up to your forehead like this. And by doing that, you're able to eliminate that card from the bottom. Now, if you don't have that cover card there, you don't even need to do that. But something else you can do, it's kind of a standard procedure amongst magicians. When there's something that you need to cover, you just cover it with your fingers, right? So you can do this kind of quick flash of the bottom portion of the deck if you understand where you're covering it. And by that, you're going to be able to show them what seems to look like just a normal bottom of the deck. They wouldn't insinuate that you can somehow see through that. And so then by doing that, you have set up kind of the idea that you're going to place it up against your forehead. Now, if you want to intensify this, I think sometimes weird motions can be helpful if you ask the audience member to mirror them. And so what you can do is you can have them hold up their deck to their forehead, and you do it at the same time. So you're going to hold this toward yourself. Of course, you don't want them to see this angle, and you don't want to flash. You're going to hold it toward yourself, and it's as you go up to your forehead that you are already getting the peak. So you see that there. This really cool window is created by this gimmick deck where you see not only the value, you see the K for king, but you also see the diamond for diamonds. Hold this toward yourself as you go up to the forehead, and you've already gotten your peak. So it's not while it's up at your forehead, it is before. So once again, invite them to do this if you'd like, but you hold this up and you explain, I'm going to hold this up to my forehead, and now it's all acting. You're going to, think to yourself, and you're going to close your eyes maybe. If they're doing it too, if they're holding this up to their forehead, I think this is a great moment that insinuates more than just a card trick, right? It's insinuating the transference of thought. So you go through that and you say, you get down to the king of diamonds, and they're going to say, yes, like that is my card. Then you can come to this deck, spread it toward yourself in such a way that, again, you are hiding the index holes, and you can take that out and hand it back to them. And that can be just its own moment. You can switch this deck back out or stop doing card tricks for a second, move on to other tricks, so that if you do want to do more card tricks again, you can ring in a normal deck easily. But that is the basics of how it works. Now you can repeat it so that you do this 2 times or you guess the card 3 times, but I think you get the law of diminishing returns there, so that can be its own thing. Now, something to note, you can do this as a full deck trick where the bottom cards are just there, hidden, right? So maybe you have them, select it from the top half, and the way you do that, right, is you kind of control where you're spreading. So by spreading only across the top portion, they will pick out one of these cards, and then you're going to spread the cards, and you can invite them. Just place it somewhere deep into the deck, deep down somewhere where I couldn't find it. They'll place it down there. You do want to be careful because, I mean, even now you can see these are clumpier cards, but also the holes can they can interact with each other. The corner of a card could catch it. So just be aware of what you're able to do with it. And then you can put it in together, square everything up, minding the index gimmick. And you can do it the same way. You can then hold it toward yourself and see that it's the 7 of spades there. So that is an option for you, but I think Tarbell, in his original presentation of the trick, I think he understood that there's something to the audience getting to hold half the deck themselves, they're getting to shuffle it themselves, and they're also getting to look at cards. So it's not just your everyday average card trick. And then if you're having them mirror this, I think that's great too, because it really makes this more than just, hey, pick a card, found your card, and there's really the idea of thought transfer. Another thing that's great about this too is that if your audience is privy to the fact that like markings exist, which I think plenty of people are in the modern world, you can even kind of emphasize and rule out those things that you're not using, right? So emphasize and recap before revealing, like, you shuffled those cards, you didn't even let me see not only the front of the card, but I didn't even look at the back of the card. In fact, look, these cards do not have markings at all, and yet when you do that thought transference, you can then reveal the card. Only thing with this, of course, is that it is a gimmicked deck, right? This is a gimmicked deck, and so it cannot be handled by the audience. So you have to manage that in your audience management and presentation. Never leave the kind of lingering moment too long to where now that we're just kind of chilling out here, they're gonna wanna see those cards, especially if you have isolated one half from the other, which I think is why this is helpful to happen right before you move on into other tricks that you're able to do that are not card tricks, or you're kind of adept at, switching or ringing in things in and out. Check this out. I have this little slip of paper that I've drawn a stick man on both sides. Of course, he looks the same on either side. Now watch this. With empty hands, I'm going to do something kind of sad to our little stickman friend here. We're just going to start tearing him up, okay? So we tear him into a few little pieces here. Put one more in there. And poor guy, we're going to curl him up into just this little ball here. So that now you can see we just have this little curled up ball of our stickman. But watch, with a little bit of magic, I'm just gonna unfurl the pieces. Look what happened. Suddenly, somehow, and fortunately, our friend is now completely whole on both sides. Welcome to the Torn and Restored paper. This is the version from Tarbell. There's many more that have come amongst and after it, so feel free to adapt this as you desire, but I wanted to teach this kind of classic principle that is at the foundation for the ways that you can remix the torn and restored effect. So if you take issue with certain aspects of this version, or you don't prefer certain things, that's totally fine. You might even be able to come up with solutions within this, but I wanted to give you this classic as it is. I do have some ideas for you as well for how you can make this stronger. So for starters, you're going to need a small, thin paper that also doesn't show through too much. So I felt like this sticky note was a pretty good one for me. And what I'm going to do is peel off two. And then this isn't necessarily something you have to do, but in the book, it was taught with kind of like a thin sliver of paper. I think he actually used tissue paper. So we're going to just kind of replicate the handling by making our own little slivers of paper. So the way Tarbell did it is he had these slivers of paper and then he had writing on them. But you don't have to do writing, you could make a drawing. And I think that's appealing and interesting to people. And depending on, the storytelling you want to do, you can kind of get something out of the fact that, like in my case, I did a stick man. So I'm going to do a stick man again, but you can get creative. You could draw maybe a flower or a tree. You could do a pair of dumbbells, anything like that. And if you're an artist, this is especially useful for you when it comes to your storytelling and your magic. Now I use dry erase marker, which in this does bleed through. So all you have to do for that is make sure you cover it up on both sides. So it helps to check front and back that you have it down. Same thing on this one, you're just going to make a duplicate stick man on both sides. So I did this pretty quick here for demonstration. And of course in performance, you're gonna want to match them as much as you can. That's something that Tarbell stressed, is the duplicate nature of it. You want it to match as much as you can, right? But I think by having it front and back, you are allowing kind of the discrepancy to be there a little bit, in that, people are seeing a drawing on the front and back. They don't remember which drawing they're seeing, so they're expecting a little bit of variation between the two drawings, front and back. In this presentation too, it kind of allows you a little bit of the, I don't know, you could make it into a joke or whatever, where you're saying like, oh, you want to see what he looks like from the back? And it's the exact same thing. Next, you're going to tape these two together. Now, the way that Tarbell did it was with like a dot of glue. You can certainly do that, but I'm just going to use a little bit of double stick tape. Take off a small piece, and if it's not small enough, you can even fold that piece over onto itself so that you just have this little square right there. And this is why I did a stick man. It helps me to just literally put this right on the dot of where his head is, and that's going to be helpful for a couple reasons. Next, just line these two up, squeeze them together, and the only thing you want to be careful of is not crumpling up the papers too much, because you want one of them to look semi non-crinkled. Next, take one of the papers and you're just going to fold it in on itself. And now when I get to here where I'm about to reach the tape, I'm going to fold in from the other side. This is why I feel like the head of the stick man is helpful, is that it's almost a guide as to where the tape is. So I folded up all the way to here, I folded down, and now I'm going to fold in. So you fold in just around that tape, and of course you don't want to pull the tape up, so just be mindful of where that is. Next, it can be helpful to kind of crinkle it a little bit, almost so that it makes like his word for it was like a flower. Just adding that little bit of crinkling is going to help. So here's kind of a picture of what it looks like for me. Now, in any case, if you want to experiment with this, it's helpful if this is as flat as possible and as small as possible, so that when you're covering it, it'll look natural. But now here's why the stick man is helpful for me. When I show this from the front, not only is this paper not too see-through, but I've also colored in a large black circle right over where you might peek through to the other side. So you can see that from making the gimmick, I did kind of squeeze and crinkle the front paper a little bit, but it still looks normal. It still looks not too weird in that spot. So now in performance, you're getting the exposed view here. Because it's taped there, you get this nice display of both your hands. Everything's covered behind the stick man's head. And I like that it's not on the upper edge, so there's no overlapping there. You get to do this nice display of both your hands. And that's something Tarbell stressed, you definitely want to start there. Now, his display of the backside, he had it with, he had some characters across, and he was able to turn his whole body and show it to the side horizontal while covering with his thumb. That's how he did it. In our case, you could come over like this and show the backside. Now this is where I'm inviting your creativity. I think there is a potential weakness that you're kind of having this thing where You know, when you show the other side of a stick man drawing, you would probably expect to see the head. You'd probably expect to see that. So you have this weird thing where you're just showing it like that. So that could be a discrepancy. So maybe consider some of the other drawing types like the flower, or maybe you have multiple flowers that way. And so by you covering one, it's less discrepant. It's less of a huge focus. So picture that maybe there's a flower here, flower here, flower here, same on the other side. Then it's not as big of a deal because they're still seeing some of those characters. I think that's probably why Tarbell did it that way. He knew that by covering up one character, it was okay because they still see the string along of characters. And that way your brain kind of completes the picture and it doesn't seem like you're purposely covering one special thing. So that's maybe the one downside of this application, but I wanted it to be a drawing, and I think there's still something you can take advantage of here when it comes to there's a person there in terms of your presentation. But here's another example. This is kind of the idea I'm saying, is if you have 3 to 5 characters on both sides filled in, or maybe you could even get away with it in this way, then when you show the backside and you're covering that piece with your thumb, it would look more something like this. And it's just in that display where you have it very free and open, and then when you're going to the back, you cover with your thumb and you show, you're kind of turning your body and you're showing the backside, and then you go back up and show. This allows you this very free and open looking display. They see nothing in your hand and your thumb is doing all the job covering. But back to this iteration of it, if you want to do it vertical like that for your stick man, that's how you would do it. So once you've done that, you can come back to this free and open display from the front, and you're going to come sideways and you're going to rip up the paper. Now, once again, I believe in the book he stressed that because you don't have to hold this in place, it's helpful to show your hands as empty as possible, as many times as possible, especially before you get to here. So now when you get to this rip, you want to make sure you're ripping before and probably not after it, especially if you don't have room. So in my case, I'm going to put all these in front, and then I'm going to fold and curl them in similar to how I did on the non-ripped side. And then I kind of flower them in as before. And I'm going to stress again what he stressed. It can be very hard to not look like you're just covering everything. Even in my performance, it was really tempting, right, to just kind of cover everything with my hands. But the strength here is that you don't need to do that. So really make sure you're making it very free and open. And then the next display you're going to do is one where you're holding both sides of the papers like this. By holding both sides, you can show it front and back. Now, just kind of naturally, you might find yourself turning it over during the fold up procedure. I think that's okay too, if you can kind of get away with some coverage there. But regardless of when, at some point you're going to want to go from the ripped side to the unripped side. So maybe one thing you can do is what you're seeing me do here. You're showing it both sides, then you come over to hold and you can unfurl it then. But regardless, you got to get to that folded up side. So you go over to the folded up side, and then you very freely show how it has restored just by unfurling the pieces. So now you're in this position and you can go to here. So it really is kind of a reversal of what you did before, because now you're back into this display. You can do your coverage and you can go into the other display. That does make it important that you fold this up small enough to be covered by the thumb so you can do that display once again. And you want to make sure it's folded in on itself so that it does not fall out of place, because these are technically loose pieces. As long as they're folded in on themselves in that final moment, you get them holding into place, and that way you can display from the front like this. And once again, you see that strength of both the color of the paper you use and of the placement of your drawings. So remember, think about the drawing you use, think about the paper you use, and leverage the strengths of the makeup of the effect. So make sure that this goes with what you can do for the display, and take advantage of it being attached at the back so that you can do these nice displays of your hands, this kind of subtlety of it seeming like your hand is otherwise empty. When it's all curled up, you're going to hold it in ways that show your hands empty, just so that it looks all very fair and very free. Now, this is unexaminable, but some of the best looking effects honestly are. Even some marketed effects today that I love, they're non-examinable. But in the case of a visual trick, I think you can sometimes get away with that because what you're showing is kind of a quick moment that you can then move into other magic. So for example, there's a torn and restored bill I really love that came out last year, where you show the bill torn, you quickly restore it, you fold it up, you put it in your pocket. And something for me that's helpful to think of is, okay, if I've just done that, maybe I go into another bill trick, right? And so we're moving on. It's like, wow, we've seen this happen. We've seen this stick man restore. Think about moving into more tricks with sticky notes, for example. But there you go, guys. That's a fun torn and restored paper effect. Remember to practice all those key points so that you can get it down and really enjoy doing it. I wanted to take a moment to give a huge shout out to our channel members. I am super grateful for you guys. If you're a more recent channel member and you don't see yourself, don't worry. I just schedule these out a little bit ahead of time. If you're interested, you can join at the supporter tier to get exclusive badges and at the insider tier to get videos ahead of time. That means you're learning tricks from this channel before anyone else. We also have merch on this channel just to showcase your love for the art of magic. It might even be a helpful way that someone sees like, oh, you're a magician. Would you show me a trick? It can kind of be an on-ramp for that for you. And there's also some sneaky items with card reveals. And if you know, you'll know what to do with that. And last but not least, I made this journal for magicians where you can recap performances. You can also visually track what's in your pockets, kind of your pocket space management. Just a helpful resource for you that you can get on Amazon. And of course, consider subscribing. Those are just all ways to support me, but hopefully add value to you as you enjoy some magic. But with all that said, let's get back to the video. I've got 4 random cards here that are in a random order. I also have 4 cards here, but these are going to represent the choices of 1 through 4. So we have ace means 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? And I'm not even going to look at these, but this is going to decide which card you think of, okay? So whatever number card this is, that's the one you think of. Does that make sense? So remember this option, and then I'm going to show you these cards, and you're going to think of that option, okay? So again, let's say this is the first card, this is the second card, this is the, where is it? The third card, this is the fourth card, okay? Does that make sense? 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever this number says, that's what you're gonna think of, okay? I'm gonna place these in my pocket now. And I'm gonna do something kind of interesting, okay? I can't see them. I'm gonna try to fish out only the cards that aren't your card. Interesting, right? Without even looking, I've committed myself to this choice already, but I'm gonna go ahead and see the number of the card you were thinking of. Okay, you were thinking of the second card in the pile, so it would be here when you were thinking of it. But now, like I said, I've committed myself. The only card remaining in my pocket, if I did this right, should be your card. So I guess we'll see. How'd I do? This is an awesome trick because you seem to be fully committed to your prediction before they actually tell you which card they were thinking of, but that's actually when the secret occurs, which is really cool. This is a trick originally from the original Tarbell Course of Magic, and I'm excited to share it with you today. So if you want to learn how, just keep watching. This was originally called a baffling discovery from the original Tarbell Course. You're gonna have 5 cards laid out in a moment. In the demonstration I did 4, but in the book he said 5, so it doesn't really matter what 5 cards there are. In fact, they're gonna be able to shuffle this ahead of time. But before we get into all that, it's important that you have something ahead of time in your pocket, and that is 4 cards. 4 cards if you use 5 for the demonstration, or 3 cards if you use 4. Okay, so you're just using 1 less. So let's say you use 5, you're gonna place this in your pocket. So for me, what's comfortable is my left front pocket because I'm left-handed. You might want to do the right hand front pocket if you're right-handed. Now, in a magic trick where the audience is able to do this, I think this is great. So encourage them to shuffle the cards themselves, and then maybe have them cut when they're done, just so they know it's extra fair. The one thing they can't do is look at all the cards that are laid out. So they're gonna deal 5 cards down, but they can't look at all of them ahead of time, just for later. It'll make it confusing and less fooling. They'll kind of figure something out if they see all the options. So then all they're gonna do is look at one of the cards and then place it back face down on the table. So let's say they picked the 3 of spades. In their mind, that's also the 3rd card. So then you come back and you're gonna place them back in the correct order, right? So they need to remember not only the card, but you need them to also remember which card it was. So you're gonna instruct them to do that. So again, from the top, they're gonna deal these 5 cards out themselves. You're gonna turn your back, they're gonna look at one, and they're also gonna remember from left to right where it was in the stack. So think about as well, if they're facing you, you're having to orient that to them. So this matters later for how the trick works. So just remember to keep all those orientations in place. So they're memorizing the 3 of spades in this case for our demonstration, and they are remembering that it's the 3rd down. So you're gonna take this and you're gonna place it in your pocket. Now here's what's happening behind the scenes. In your pocket, you already have this stack of cards with the back facing out toward the audience. When you go in with the 5 cards, you're gonna go in behind these cards, and then you're gonna take out those cards, right? So you're dumping the entire stack. But what you're saying to the audience is that you're going to leave one of the cards behind. So it's actually okay in this case if you fiddle around a little bit, right? So you go in with the 5 cards, and then you're gonna say, oh, you're just acting like you're leaving behind a card. You're like, I think I'm gonna go with, okay, I'm gonna try to take out every card but your card. And you've done it like so. Now, if you want, you can make this a little more dramatic, and you can actually take out one by one and show the cards, and they can say no, no, no. And that will escalate the tension each time, right? So if you have the time for that and they're seeming to enjoy it, you can really milk this, where instead of just laying out all the cards, you can say, I'm gonna try to take out cards one by one, and all of them are gonna not be your card. So if you do the one by one method, when you go in, instead of immediately taking these cards out from your pocket, you're gonna go in and you're actually gonna allow these to combine, but it's gonna be okay because all you have to do is from your pocket, one by one, take out those cards. And that's really fun. You can be dramatic about it, right? This is just a presentational difference, and they're gonna say, oh my gosh, like they're gonna think there's only one card in your pocket left and that it's theirs. Now, here's how this works. Before you reveal the card, you actually still don't know what the card is, right? So here's the cool thing. You're simply gonna ask them, now you were thinking of one of these cards, which card was it in the pile? Was it the 3rd card, the 4th card? And they'll tell you like, oh, it was the 3rd card. So that's the only piece of information you need to now go into your pocket and find that card. So you have 5 cards here. You're going to be able to, so in your pocket, it might vary what's comfortable for you. You might have room to push down to the 3rd card. You might have room to pull up, or you might be able to count backwards in your head, right? Like 5, 4, and you have the 3rd card, you pull it out. Regardless of what you do, you want it to be smooth but quick enough that you're able to get to that card and it not seem too much like you're fiddling. Grab that 3rd card and place it here, but all of that is happening in your pocket. But this is why this is so amazing. They have given you this piece of information without even realizing it. This key piece of information of it being the 3rd card down is what clues you in to then go to your tiny stack of cards and find the correct card. And then of course, you can reveal it. So that's why, remember from the top, they can't see the 5 options ahead of time because these are gonna be 4 completely different cards. And the illusion of this is gonna be so strong because you will have seemed to committed yourself to one card being left behind in your pocket before you even know which card they're thinking of, which I think just makes this so incredible. So remember from the top, you're gonna have 1 less than the number of options they have in your pocket ahead of time. Remember to let them shuffle the cards themselves and then maybe cut before they deal out 5 cards to the table. Be clear with your instructions. You know, you want to turn your back, but you want them to understand where in the lineup it is to remember both the card and the number of the lineup. So in this case, the Ace of Diamonds at position 2. Make sure that you collect the cards in the order that they originally were in so that the order will be correct later. Take that stack of cards into your pocket where these other cards are, go behind them, And for a quick committing, you can kind of fiddle for a moment and then show these 4 cards and say that you've left their card behind, or you can place them behind, let everything come together, and then one by one say that you're going to pull out every card but their card. And then either way, you're at this state where they will then say, in this case, the position 2 was where their card was, so you ask them in the position, pull out from your pocket the card at that position, place it right there. These cards will be hidden in your pocket, no one will ever know that they're there, and then you can go into your reveal. Such a cool presentation, such a cool principle. And the method is so simple and yet so elegant to allow the audience member to shuffle the deck themselves, for all those 5 cards to truly be random, for them to think of anyone they want, and for you to seem to have committed your choice of prediction before you even know it for real. So that is the trick, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching all the way to the end. But until next time, keep enjoying your magic, stay a hobbyist at heart, and I'll see you guys in the next video.